What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV, joined by a very special guest, my former colleague at the Green Bay Press Gazette. It's Ryan Wood. Ryan, how are you, buddy?
I am doing well, Nagler. It's always good to catch up with you. I feel like since Chicago, I've been in kind of this dark cave, and I haven't seen sunlight because of this grade series that we're in the middle of. So it's nice. It's nice to poke my head out and talk to another person.
Some human interaction. I like it. It's good. Obviously, I'm sure most of the audience here is very familiar with your work there at PackersNews.com. If you're not, make sure you're checking it out. I've got a link in the description of this video for you to do so. And Ryan, you mentioned it, your grade series. We did this last year. Had a lot of fun doing that, so I thought we'd do it again as far as just going through the position groups here, much like you are there at the Green Bay Press Gazette, and giving out some grades and talking about your grades. Starting, obviously, got to start with the quarterback. And I don't think it's any mystery when you look at the work that Jordan Love put on the field this year, along with his backup in Malik Willis. Both of these guys, I thought, acquitted themselves pretty damn well.
What a tremendous place for an NFL franchise to be, where one of the positions that you just don't have any questions about is the quarterback position. And we know that there's really not a lot of questions about Jordan Love because in Brian Gutekunst's season wrap, he had one question about Jordan Love. It was like 27 and a half minutes.
Crazy, right?
And I'm sitting there thinking, right? What a difference a year makes.
Right.
Because the last 2 years, after 23 and 24, I was there. I was among the people, and there was plenty others peppering Brian Gutekunst about the development of Jordan Love. But not to say he's not arrived at the pantheon of quarterbacks at this point, but he's not that far off from being one of the best in the league. Like, that's where he is after the third season replacing Aaron Rodgers. And I don't think the Packers could ask for any more. So as far as Jordan Love goes, and I wrote this, you keep his jersey clean, he's going to win you an MVP one day.
I agree.
His clean pocket numbers are elite. We're talking 74% completion, 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 122 rating. And you might tell me, well, that's what clean pocket quarterbacks should do in this league. Not like that. That's elite. A year before, in 2024, when Jordan Love was dealing with the leg injuries, and he entered this year with what was the number one question on him was, is he actually accurate? It's definitive now. It was the lower base injuries in 2024 that affected his accuracy. Yes, he is very accurate. His clean pocket rating in 2024 was 100. It went up 20, which is fine. It's not great. It's fine. He went up 22 points there. If you keep his jersey clean, he's going to win you an MVP one day. The problem was that too often this offensive line did not keep his jersey clean. He had 140 throws under duress, which was his most in 3 seasons. Now, Jordan Love, we're talking about elite pocket presence. I mean, he is one of the best in the league at mitigating disaster, win under pressure. Only 4 interceptions all season under pressure. Only 21 sacks taken, which I believe is the lowest in the league. But part of that, too, is it was very clear Jordan Love operated under the ethos of do no harm when under pressure. Over 30 aborted throws just thrown away, which I think ultimately where you'd like to see him go is that he can make more plays under pressure. That's what the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomeses do, is when things break down, they find a way to make a play. They don't just punt for the next one. He can develop there some, sure, but also you should be thinking, okay, we've got a quarterback that is elite in the clean pocket. Just keep his jersey clean. That should be the goal for any offense with their quarterback. You do that, Jordan Love is about as good as it gets in the league.
And you talk about, the avoidance of sacks, which is a quarterback trait that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. And he was excellent at it, not taking losses and what have you. And you're absolutely right as far as I think the next step, the next evolution, as it were, probably is about, if and when things break down, because even on the best years, you're going to have plays where things get messed up front, right? Can you make a play off schedule, out of structure, what have you, rather than just throwing the ball away? But I will say that's a step forward from the guy we certainly saw, especially his first year as a starter, but even last year, where when sometimes that would occur, he would put the ball in jeopardy trying to make a play, right? Even this year, like I think of the first drive against the Bengals, that ended in an interception when he's off schedule trying to make a play, right? I think those types of plays were few and far between this year. And it's funny to watch. I'd love to get kind of your view on this because it's funny to watch the kind of the national perception of Jordan Love kind of suffering from a hangover almost from those first two seasons. Because I think if you actually just watched this season of Jordan Love without any context of what had come before it, I think the perception and the conversation around Jordan would be very different because I'm with you. I saw a quarterback who's ready to become one of the elite quarterbacks in the league.
I saw a quarterback that had the traits already that he is one of the elite quarterbacks in this league, right? And maybe you can argue, okay, the elite quarterbacks make more plays under pressure, but I think it's just as important that they don't make boneheaded errors under pressure, because that's what you see a lot of, especially a lot of the young, talented quarterbacks do is things break down and they panic. And all of a sudden, what started as a bad play becomes a disastrous play. You didn't see that a lot with Jordan Love. It just seemed like in his third season, the game slowed down for him. We talk about that with players at other positions and how the game slows down, that they play better within the scheme. They play faster. He played calmer. He was calm under duress, and he had a knack of not turning a bad situation worse. And I do think there's a lot of value in that from that position. Now it's just time to, okay, when you have a bad play, when you have a breakdown, make something happen. And let's not, part of Jordan Love's season, you can't talk about it without the fact that Tucker Kraft played 8 games. Christian Watson had half a season. Jaden Reed had half a season. I do think that if Tucker Kraft doesn't tear his ACL against the Panthers, you're going to see Jordan Love make a heck of a lot more plays under pressure than he saw last year, because that's the escape valve. That's the guy that you can throw a 2-yard check down to, and he turns it.
You get a ton of yak. Right?
He didn't have that the last 2 months of the season, so there is that as well. Now you can only grade what you see, right? And you didn't see him with Tucker Kraft for a full season, but I do think that can he make that next step there? Having a full season of Tucker Kraft sure helps that.
What did you give him grade-wise? Because to me, I mean, I'm a fanboy, obviously, but that was an A performance for me. Now, you can quibble about, some of the plays that he made, the interceptions when they occurred, whatever. But, man, that's an A performance for me in 2025.
Yeah, I gave him a B+. To me, A is an all-pro season. I mean,
that makes sense.
My grading, A is for all-pro, and B is – I thought Jordan Love was a Pro Bowl snub. I thought he was one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFC last year. B is a legitimate Pro Bowl, not like that popularity content Pro Bowl, but like an actual Pro Bowl player. I thought he was an actual Pro Bowl quarterback. I thought when you look at him and how he ranks in the NFC, I thought the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFC last year were Matt Stafford, Jordan Love, Jared Goff. Jared Goff, especially with the Lions' protection issues for most of the season, Jared Goff played at a very high level as well. So I gave him a B+. I do think the ability to make more plays under pressure is what turns that into an A. But other than that, you're looking at a guy where what else do you want? He's elite in clean pocket. He can throw downfield. You remember 2023? We're like, okay, can he throw downfield? Does he have that? Yeah, he has that. He's terrific, 20 yards plus targeting. He does not make mistakes when plays break down. That pocket presence and the ability to really mitigate pressure and not take sacks is a huge deal, because those are drive killers. He does all that at a very high level.
What did you make of the play of Malik Willis? I mean, that's somebody who clearly, when he came to the Packers 2 summers ago, I got to admit, I just talked about this on my daily show. I did not have high hopes. I liked the tools. I think a lot of people did when he was coming out in the draft, but I certainly didn't expect him to, A, come in and perform as well as he did 2 seasons ago. And I definitely didn't expect him to end up looking as potent as he looked in 2025.
I gave Malik Willis a B, a solid B, just a shade of a letter grade down from Jordan Love, which sounds crazy for a backup quarterback who finished only 2 games this season. But when you look at, in the caveat, small sample size, but when you look at the production, he outperformed Jordan Love in key categories based on production numbers in a way that it wasn't like Jordan Love didn't perform well. It's just how well Malik Willis performed. For example, perfect 158.3 passer rating under pressure, which is redonkulous. Third down, where Jordan Love is very good, has always been very good. Malik Willis, perfect 158.3. So you're talking about money downs and under pressure. Malik Willis had a perfect passer rating. Now, the difference between him and Jordan Love is obvious. You didn't see it stretched out over a course of a full season, which we're about to in 2026.
Yes,
he's going to have a chance at least to be a starter somewhere. I imagine in this league with a dearth of quality quarterbacks, he's going to win a job somewhere. And I'm fascinated to see what he can do over a 17-game schedule, because it is different when defensive coordinators have that game tape and are specifically planning to take you out. And that's what it's going to be. But his pressure, his third down numbers, his deep throwing, which is absolutely there. He has a different athletic gear than most quarterbacks, including Jordan Love. You look at the Ravens game, what he's able to do with his legs, but he also didn't rely on his legs. I mean, he was a thrower of the football in 2025. Tight window throws, the touchdown that he had to Christian Watson on 3rd and goal in that relief appearance in New York.
Insane throw. Yeah.
He is incredibly talented. I think he was considered incredibly talented coming into the draft. The question was, with his athleticism, the way that his throwing platform moves, can he be accurate in those situations? And with that elite passer rating under pressure, he showed that, yes, he can. Yes, he is very accurate when he's got to move. I give Matt LaFleur a lot of credit. And I think that, the biggest question after the season obviously was Matt LaFleur. And I wrote about this. It's very obvious that Ed Policy, and he even mentioned this in the letter that he wrote to the fans, did the calculus in his head and looked around and realized this league covets quarterback developers as head coaches. That is what everybody wants. And when you look at Matt LaFleur, pulled half of Aaron Rodgers' 4 MVPs out of him. He developed Jordan Love into this. And just on the side, Malik Willis is a 158 pressure rating. Like they have an elite quarterback developer at head coach, and this is no time to be changing the scheme and changing the offense entering Jordan Love's 4th season. Like, I can buy that argument. Now, I can also buy the argument that once you have that guy in place at quarterback, it's not enough to be a 7th seed every year. You have to win at the highest level, and Matt LaFleur has not gotten this team to do that. That's very fair as well. But the two things can be true at the same time, right? The Packers do owe a debt of gratitude to Matt LaFleur for the years after Aaron Rodgers leaves. The clock didn't turn back to 1973 because, Aaron, we were there late in the Aaron Rodgers era.
That last 2018, that was tough. Yeah.
I thought a reckoning was coming, because you just don't do this as NFL franchises. You don't go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to now Jordan Love. That does not happen. Matt LaFleur had a lot to do with that.
Absolutely. It is going to be fascinating to see, how this progresses forward with Matt and Jordan, but Jordan's clearly on the right path. Speaking of paths, the running backs had to try to make do without a path going forward. We'll get to the offensive line in a little bit, but at the running back spot, you obviously start with Jacobs, and it's hard for me sitting here I knew I was going to be talking to you. I've been reading your series, and I love Josh Jacobs as a football player, right? I mean, everything about him, I think when he's right, which is a huge caveat, when he's right, there's no one else I'd like back there. I think he's all world as far as talent goes. But the combination, it feels this year, of the issues they had up front, coupled with seemingly every week Jacobs dealing with some kind of new nagging, lingering injury, really put this season on ice, almost from the jump. I mean, it was hard to watch at times because, again, not a lot to work with, but he's had not a lot to work with before, and we've seen him create. He couldn't create this year, to my eyes.
One of the hardest, for me at least, one of the hardest players on this roster to evaluate because of the mess of an offensive line that he did have to deal with throughout. I gave him a B minus, and the difficulty for me in evaluating his season is how much was the offensive line, how much was the injuries, and how much was performance outside of those things, right? The reality is he had about a third of the broken tackles as he had in 2024. So there was a certain pop that he had in his first season, which was a top 5 season for a Packers running back in franchise history.
Yep.
That was absent in 2025. More broken tackles, you're getting more yards with those offensive line breakdowns in front of you. That is part of that is on the running back. The knee that he dealt with from New York on last year obviously had a big part of that as well. Even early in the season, though, when they're playing some of the worst run defenses in the NFL, he's a guy that was struggling getting to 4 yards per carry. Getting to the average, which I think collectively the teams like the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Commanders gave up about 4.6 yards per carry. He was just over 4 there, so under that 4.6. I think that some of it was performance-based as well, but at the same time, Brian Gutekunst, he's correct when he says that he was a warrior. For Josh Jacobs to play through the things that he played through was a big deal. Getting him off the field, getting him to miss that game and against Minnesota that he did not need to play, getting him to have only 4 carries against the Ravens, that was tough work for this training staff and this medical staff and the coaching staff, because he's going to be out there every week. And there's a lot of value at that position for a guy who, even if he's just a plugger, being there, knowing that's your base level, is a guy that's going to take the carries every single week. And Josh Jacobs gives him that. One of the questions I asked Brian Gutekunst after the season was, okay, because Josh Jacobs, it wasn't just difficult to evaluate in 2025. I think that where he goes from here is also difficult to evaluate. He's entering his age 28 season. There is a ton of mileage on him. He just had an injury-riddled 2025. Where's he at this stage in a running back's life where you start to see decline? And Brian Gutekunst made it very clear he thinks that Josh Jacobs has a lot of good years left. So we'll see how that evaluation tracks in 2026. I think that there's plenty of reason to think that he does. I mean, you keep him healthy, I think you're looking at a more productive player. The question to me is, can you keep him healthy?
What you mentioned, the one game he missed in Lambeau against Minnesota, where we did see Emmanuel Wilson come to life, man. I got to admit, talk about Nagler's never right. If you had asked me, will we ever see that type of performance out of Emmanuel Wilson against a pretty damn good defense? I mean, you talk about opening some eyes. That was a hell of a performance. But with that said, do we think he's long for the roster? Because it's interesting when you look at kind of everything they've got to deal with this offseason already. I would suspect they want maybe a different type of back, if that makes sense. And I don't know that Emmanuel Wilson, as well as he played this year, and I do think he had a good season, I think there's a case to be made that, especially if Josh is right, you want someone who's a little bit more dynamic. And that's no shade to Emmanuel, but I do wonder, like, what the kind of prognosis is there.
It's been interesting to track Emmanuel Wilson's film the last few years, and each year he becomes more and more like Josh Jacobs, which is because he didn't start off here. He started off here in his rookie year, leading the NFL in preseason rushing as the guy that can take the 80-yard home run ball against the Bengals down the sideline, right? We don't see those type of plays. We see a running back that more and more is becoming a power runner.
I was going to say way more power than I ever expected out of him.
Yeah, which we didn't see that when he started out. It's almost like osmosis, right? He shares a room with Josh Jacobs. It's not a surprise that he's becoming more and more like Josh Jacobs, because if I'm Emmanuel Wilson, who am I listening to? I'm listening to Josh Jacobs. But with that said, this backfield does desperately lack someone who's that more of a home run hitter, that change of pace, a Marshawn Lloyd. Goodness, have they missed him these last 2 years? Because when he's healthy, he's got that type of burst. He's just never healthy, and that's a big problem. They were expecting him to be that change of pace when they drafted him in the 3rd round, not knowing that he'd missed 2 seasons with injuries. So they are missing that. Emmanuel Wilson's season, basically a carbon copy of 2024. I mean, right down to the yards. I think he was within 10 yards of his 2024 number. A few less missed tackles, similar to Josh Jacobs. Some of that, obviously, offensive line dependent. But as far as a backup goes, like when you show that you can carry the load for 1 week, even against J.J. McCarthy and that Vikings team, that's what you want in a backup behind Josh Jacobs. You want a guy that you can give the ball to 28 times, no fumbles, 2 touchdowns, running over to the defense at the 1-yard line both times. You want to know that you're secure there if your starter misses a week, and they are. So I do think that there's certainly a role for Emmanuel Wilson in this backfield. One of the things that's interesting is when he did have those big games, or when he looked really good in Pittsburgh too. The following week, when Josh Jacobs was back, his role went down.
He just disappears. Yes,
quite a bit.
And that's not his fault, right?
No,
but it's just.
The thing is, when he's similar to Josh Jacobs and you have Josh Jacobs healthy now, he's not giving you the change of pace. You would prefer to have Josh Jacobs out there. I think that's the reason. If he was more of a change of pace, maybe that role stays higher in those weeks following than it was. But as far look, he's a serviceable backup, clearly. And you want those on your football team. So I do think there's a role for him.
Moving out to the tight end position, you mentioned Tucker Kraft, obviously going down against the Panthers really, really sucked. He was on his way to just an all-time Packers tight end season, which he himself acknowledged in the final locker cleanout day, I believe it was. Just everything you want at the position, right? It's interesting, though, because you talk about grading the roster. He was on a heater, obviously, having a phenomenal season. They didn't get a whole lot from Luke Musgrave. They got Wiley in the mix there kind of halfway through the season, and I thought he showed promise before going down. And I thought Fitzpatrick was playing pretty damn good ball until he went down. Now, and that's a pretty significant injury. Where are they at tight end? Is this a place where you think there could be some, I want to say overhaul, but like some pretty significant change just because of, again, the injuries, but there's also not been a whole ton of production behind Kraft.
When you play half a season, that affects, for me, it affects the grade, because what did Mike McCarthy always like to see? The greatest ability and availability. And so even though, like, clearly no fault of Tucker Kraft whatsoever, he wasn't expecting Sean Ryan to shoot into his knee on a low blow from Carolina's defensive end. Like, it just happened. That's part of football. Contact injuries are bad luck. They're not failure to prepare and maintain your body. They're just bad luck football plays. But it does drop a letter grade when you only play half a season, because you're only available half the season. I gave Tucker Kraft a solid B, which means that he was on his way to a solid A season. What I say about A meaning all-pro, he was on pace for a legitimate all-pro season. He was on pace for the best season for a Packers tight end in franchise history, which since Jermichael Finley, they've been looking for. They've tried the Jimmy Grahams. They had been Robert Tonyan for a year. Yeah. They've been looking for a Tucker Kraft. Now they have one. Now keep him healthy. I don't know what you thought, Aaron, but the fact that Tucker Kraft played not even 8 full games and still led the offense in yak. I got a lot of, the receivers stink. And okay, Jaden Reed playing half a year, certainly, if he has a full season, I expect that Jaden Reed would have led the offense in yak.
Most likely, yes.
But outside of Jaden Reed, like, you're okay with Christian Watson not getting a lot of yak. You want him working deep and intermediate. Like that's one of the best deep threats in the league. Romeo Doubs had a better, maybe the best season of his career, a better yak season. Dontavian Wicks did drop off in yak from where he was his rookie year. That's not, to me, that's not, the receivers just stink. That's a guy who continuously, all the time, stretches these checkdowns, these short outs into big plays, runs like a raging bull with the football. Not a guy that DBs want to tackle. That he had 350 yak yards in 8 games. That's incredible. So, yeah, it was an A season for me. And I think that when you look at this offense and how it's put together going forward, one of the questions I had, and Tucker Kraft had as well coming into the season, he talked about how he wanted to be better in man separation down the field because he has those tools. But if you have the Christian Watson, if you have the Jaden Reed from the slot, the value they have with just Tucker Kraft operating near the line of scrimmage and stretching these short throws, these high percentage safe throws into big plays on a continual basis. I don't know if you need that. Like, just go and be elite at what you're elite at, and it's such a perfect fit in this passing game. So yeah, I think that Tucker Kraft is exactly who they've been looking for. The thing with Luke Musgrave that's interesting to me, I really think that after Carolina, he was miscast by this coaching staff in that
for a while. Yeah,
it was for a while. He pretty much was put into that Tucker Kraft role where, okay, the tight end position has given Jordan Love all these safe, high percentage throws and made him big plays. Go do that. So much of his targets were coming within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and almost none of them were stretched to 10-yard gains. I think only one all season was that he was targeted less than 10 yards was an actual 10-yard gain, because that's not what he does. What he does very well, and he showed it last year too, he's kind of like the Christian Watson of tight ends. Right? You don't want whack there. You just want he's a good route.
Go downfield and catch the ball.
Go downfield and get big plays, which he gave you. Yeah, he did that. And after a while of trying and failing to get him to be this yak king that Tucker Kraft is, they did finally course correct late in the season, and he gave you big plays. He maybe should have had one Lambeau Field against the Bears. That was a tremendous catch laying out that they didn't call a catch. The Broncos one where he jumps and gets the ball thrown over his head and comes down with it wide open. He can give you those 20+ yard gains downfield from that position. That's a good compliment to Tucker Kraft. I think if you get him in the right role as a tight end too, that's a good place for him to be in this offense. He's not a tight end one. He's not a yak lord like Tucker Kraft is. If you're expecting him to be that, you're going to be disappointed.
It's interesting too. I mean, he's heading into his final year of his rookie deal, right? And he's cheap labor at this point, but I can't imagine that's a long-term answer for anything. I wouldn't be surprised, Ryan, if they look at tight end in this draft. And I know from the folks who do cover the draft religiously, 24/7, 365, the world we live in now, I'm told that there are a bunch of really talented tight ends in this class. So I do think that's something to look for in April when the Packers are on the clock there, because I got to imagine, especially with Tucker coming into the season off of an injury, you're going to have to augment at that position. Like, there's no way they don't.
I wouldn't be surprised, and yet at the same time, I think they're in a good position because they don't exactly need to. And so if the value is there, and we know this about Brian Gutekunst, he'll draft talent regardless of position, right? Like if the value is there, he's going to hit that position. But if they don't, I think that they're in good shape, because I don't know. I'd like to see a full season of Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave together, and having both of them be in the roles that they were born to be in, instead of trying to fit them into this role that Luke Musgrave's case, that he's not built that way. And I don't think that's on Luke Musgrave, because there's a lot of value in having a field stretching tight end, which is what he has been and what he is. That's what he was drafted for. You remember that first training camp?
Oh yeah.
When they were force feeding him and accelerating him
every day. He made plays every day. Yeah. That person.
But they were down the field.
Yeah.
They weren't checkdowns. Nope. He was making plays down the seam. He was making plays downfield. That's what he is here to do. Let him do that. And obviously having Tucker Kraft back helps with that.
Absolutely. Speaking of help, where they desperately need help, or at least help figuring it out, when you pull it all into the offensive line. And I know we've talked a lot about it here at CHTV. I know everyone basically talking about or covering the Packers has mentioned this, so it's not breaking news. But man, what a disappointing year, and it's everything, and that's why it gets hard when people talk about, well, what's the problem, or where should the blame be placed? Man, you can talk about the decision making right from the jump, as far as moving Elton Jenkins. You can talk about the signing of Aaron Banks. Those are decisions that are made even before they hit a practice field, right? But then you talk about the guys on the field and how they played, or how poorly or inconsistently they played. Man, you talk about a train wreck. It has been a long time, Ryan, since I've seen a Packers offensive line as disjointed and just downright bad as this group was in 2025.
Yeah, it's well said. It was. Let's go back to this. Before Micah Parsons, Brian Gutekunst's primary project last offseason was the offensive line. And they entered this season feeling like they were much better than 2024, when in 2024 they weren't bad, but they weren't good either. They were just kind of middle of the road. And
they could at least protect, though. They could protect, right?
They could protect.
They couldn't run the ball a lick, but they could protect. Right.
They had an all-time season from Josh Jacobs in 2024, which did mask a lot of the run game. But it took such a step back. And when that's your primary offseason project,
yikes.
Boy, that's not supposed to happen, right? And it's hard to know. Let me start here. Are you surprised, and I'll be blunt, that Luke Butkus still has a job?
I'm not, and I'm glad you brought that up, because this has been kind of the lightning rod, right? As far as, Corey made the joke on our season-ending show, like they got to give us someone, meaning the fans, right? They got to give a pound of flesh. Someone's got to swing for everything that happened this year, whether it is offensive staff or Rich Bisaccia or whoever, right? And so my chats have been filled with why is Butkus still employed? Like, I get this a lot, and I got to admit, I look at the totality of the work that he's done as offensive line coach, and I think he's done a pretty good job. Now, 2025 was a disaster, but I can't sit here as someone on the outside who doesn't know what he's emphasizing in the classroom, what he's emphasizing on the practice field day in and day out. I can't imagine he's sitting there going, hey, when they run this really simple stunt, make sure you totally screw it up. You know what I mean? Like, I think my guess would be LaFleur is looking at the fact that up until this season, Butkus had done a pretty damn good job. And yeah, this season is unacceptable, but given the body of work, I think that's most likely why Butkus is still employed. Now, Stoutland's out there now, and who knows, maybe they make that call, but I can't say I'm shocked, especially because I remember something that LaFleur said, I think it was 2 off seasons ago when he let Joe Barry go. And he said, I don't want to be one of those coaches who's hiring and firing people every single off season. And you can criticize that. You can say that's wrong-headed. I at least understand that, right? The idea of continuity, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I can buy that. Now, he's got to put up or shut up in 2026. Like, there's zero doubt about that. But yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying not terribly surprised. Put it that way.
The not terribly surprised, that it's just very clear that Matt LaFleur does not abide by the theory of you got to give a pound of flesh somewhere.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
He's not going to give it to you. Yeah. As head coaches get in a very disloyal league. And so that's not a surprise. But I'll tell you, what you see on film is an offensive line that could not transition block to the second level. What you see on film is an offensive line with communication breakdowns up and down.
Every other play. Yeah.
The play that I got there week 4 against Dallas, and I had to stop because I'm like, what? I've never seen this before. You have Sean Ryan and Darian Kennard, right guard, right tackle, blocking on a Cowboys defensive tackle. It was 97. I don't have the name in front of me. And they both take him off the snap. You have a double team block, and simultaneously they both release Kennard outside, Ryan inside at the same time, so that what had started as a double team block becomes an unblocked pressure straight into Jordan Love's face. And it suffice it to say, they don't draw it up that way.
No.
Like, that's not supposed to happen. I don't know why this offensive line so consistently could not reach the second level. It absolutely obliterated their run game. You've got to transition block to the second level if you want to get big plays in the run game. You've got to take care of the backers. They could not. So what do they have from here? Like, where do they, and that was a big question in my mind.
Yeah.
As you start to put together the offensive line for 2026, you have 5 spots. You had 2 Ds, and that's especially problematic because it was the guy that you thought was going to be a better center replacement for Josh Myers and Elton Jenkins and actually was worse.
Yeah.
And you have a left guard that you paid like a top 5 left guard in the league to replace Elton Jenkins and Aaron Banks that was a subpar starter on the offensive line. Those are two big giant X's, right? Now, with Aaron Banks, how much of that was injuries, which, as Brian Gutekunst said, is not something he ever really had to deal with before in his career, had to deal with that a lot in 2025. He did get better later in the season. Better, not good.
I'm glad you said that. It's not good, right? That's the funny part, because that has been kind of the company line, and I've heard that kind of throughout the season. Oh, Banks has improved, and yeah, but the bar was in hell. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he was so uninspiring that first month of the season when he was in there. That okay, he improved, sure, to competency essentially. Like, and again,
he got
free agent. Yeah. Like that's a tough look. That's a tough.
So, I don't know what you do with left guard. Like I think it's like 4.5.
Well, they're going to bring him. They're going to bring him back. You know,
right? So you're not saving a lot of money there. So they're going to bring him back.
Yeah.
But boy, do they need him to play better. With Elton Jenkins, obviously he might be gone.
I think he's done. Yeah.
What do you do at center? Well, I think they found something in Sean Ryan at center, and he's not going to cost a lot. And if you're a team looking to be frugal with the cap without sacrificing your floor at certain spots, and one of those spots is center, where, you know, if you have a solid floor there, you don't need an all-pro at center. You just need to have a guy that can block what's in front of him, be flanked by the guards, which is very advantageous for Sean Ryan because he's a very powerful run blocker. You lose something in pass protection. Well, you can hide him better at center than you can at guard. And you bring him back on a friendly deal. I think there's a lot of value there. So let's say that Sean Ryan's the center. Anthony Belton makes all the sense in the world day one, week guard, 1, right guard, right? You need a healthy season out of Zach Tom. Zach Tom had a phenomenal season given the injury situation he's playing with all year. He still played at a high level through injury.
Yep.
That Denver game, if you watch the film from there, they were starting to figure things out. And I don't just say that because they blocked up the 40-yard touchdown for Josh Jacobs, best run of the season for them.
Yeah, no doubt.
Against that defensive front early in that game, they were hitting their protections. It looked better. And then they lose Zach Tom. That was a massive issue late in the year. Even with Jordan Morgan playing a decent right tackle, he's not Zach Tom, right? No. Now, the Jordan Morgan question. I gave him an F in 2024. I remember we talked about that because of the lack of availability, the injuries, and he just did not handle the flexibility that was asked of him very well. I thought he handled it much better last year. He opened 7 touchdown runs. He played a better guard than Aaron Banks, and he's not.
I agree, which is fucking insane.
Yeah, it is. Like that's what you need to know about Jordan Morgan. Is like he's not a guard, and yet he played
better guard than the guard you paid.
Yeah. So I thought he handled the adversity, which for him it was, of the musical chairs much better in his second season. If you just put him at left tackle, which is I think what they're going to do, I think he's going to be fine.
I agree.
He's going to be just fine. You know, Sean Ryan's a good example for me of a guy that his first year as a third-round pick, a highly drafted offensive lineman, was a complete waste. His second year, nothing. And then you just give him time to marinate, and now, he's a pretty serviceable starter on the offensive line, right? It just took some time to get there. I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Morgan followed the same type of path at the premium position at left tackle. Brian Gutekunst made it clear after the season that he thought Jordan Morgan might have done enough in camp to win that job outright over Rasheed Walker.
Thought that's the other thing. I thought he did. You talk about that stretch that Walker misses. I think it's like 10, 12 days with a groin injury. Morgan was lights out. Like he was really good.
Rasheed Walker had the worst year of his career. He gave up 40 pressures. I've got to think that not playing next to Elton Jenkins at left guard had a lot to do with that, right? And that's always the tough part in evaluating tackles is how much of tackle play is dependent on the guard next to them. If you don't have Elton Jenkins and you replace him with Aaron Banks, all of a sudden you are on an island much more. And a lot of the pressures that Rasheed Walker gave up were inside speed, where he has no help there. And good luck, right? You're on an island. You did not handle that well. Jordan Morgan has the athleticism to take away that inside speed. He has the athleticism to survive better on the island than Rasheed Walker did last year. So I think that they're better there with Jordan Morgan just given the job and develop, run with it. There's going to be maybe some issues early in the season. Jordan Morgan in week 18, when he played left tackle the one game, he looked like a left tackle that hadn't played left tackle in months. Like it didn't look good, but just stop yanking him around, put him there, and let him grow. I think that goes a long way. Healthy Zach Tom, getting Sean Ryan back at center, having Anthony Belton at right guard, Jordan Morgan given the left tackle position, let him grow. That goes a long way to solving, and then you just want to have a better season of Aaron Banks.
Need it. Absolutely need it. Let's flip it around. Talking about the lines, let's talk about the defensive line. We can lump in edge and defensive tackle here because obviously it all starts with Micah Parsons. He's the headliner. He's the star. Going to be interesting to see. They got decisions to make mostly around Rashawn Gary, right? Lucas Van Ness, I thought, played well when he was on the field. He just wasn't on the field enough because of the foot injury this season. Overall, though, what are you talking about, the edge or the defensive tackle group? Not nearly enough without Micah, right? Like, I don't think that's unfair. Certainly you saw some nice individual moments from pretty much almost everybody. I can go all the way down to Nazir Stackhouse stuffing a fourth down in Lambeau, right? Like, everybody had a moment almost, but as a collective, and you saw it in the Super Bowl, like, if you can win with 4, regardless of who's out there, you can win. The Packers can't win with 4 without Micah Parsons. And that's something, to me, I don't think it's going to be dramatic, but that's got to be at least augmented and or addressed a little bit this offseason.
There's a lot to get to with this defense line. Let's start with edge. How many pressures would you guess, just guess off the top of your head, that Rashawn Gary had in the 2025 season?
The entire season? I'll be generous and say 70.
Okay. That is very generous.
Yeah.
I had him at 56.
All right. See, that sounds more realistic.
Well, I thought I'd screwed something up when I went through and I counted all the Rashawn Gary pressure. I was like, oh, that can't be right. And then Brian Gutekunst says after the season that they had him at 60-some, right? So over 60, I'm like, well, okay. Because the way that, pressures is subjective to the eye of the evaluator. Yep. You're never going to get one number of pressures that's universal for everyone. They're kind of like drops that way. There's some counting stats that just there's some wiggle room there. I had him at 56. I thought that was way too high to be real, and then the Packers had him at higher. So no, I mean, I think that 56 is a very fair number, and I would not have guessed that. Now here's what's crazy. After his final sack in Pittsburgh, right? It's
Pittsburgh.
It's late October. It is week 8, and he has 7.5 sacks. After that final sack, the last 10 games, he had 32 pressures. So he was getting pressure. Like, that's 3 pressures a game is fine. He just wasn't getting sacks. And why that matters is because he's paid for sacks. 13th highest paid edge rusher in the league. Yeah. You're paid for sacks. You sack. And it's true that pressures still matter, and that too often we put too much emphasis on sacks.
All I hear is Mike Smith in my ear. Right?
Yeah, sacks are still – those are drive killers. That's why guys get paid, is for sacks. Micah Parsons, 5 seasons straight to start his career with a dozen sacks. Like, that's what makes him is that he closes those plays. For whatever reason, Rashawn Gary lost the ability, that closing speed, to finish those pressures into sacks. And the Packers are going to have to make an evaluation there this offseason as to why, right? Maybe this is just who he is, which 56 pressures, plays damn fine run defense. Not as good run defense as Kingsley Enagbare, but still.
No, but what's funny, too, is I thought that was one of his most improved areas as far as, like, the jump he took in run defense. But, like, you're talking about, like, the whole paradigm shifts because of how the contract, right? If you ask him to take a pay cut, A, is he amiable? And B, is that then maybe not hampering, but does that kind of leave you with a rotation with him and LVN, and then LVN's not getting enough, etc.? Like, I can understand either way, but to your point, I thought overall his game actually was pretty good.
Yeah.
As far as just a totality of a football player. But you're not wrong in the sense that, man, you are paid. And what's wild too is like, I'm just thinking about the play he makes in Chicago where he literally has his hand on the ball. You know, Caleb Williams is about to throw. He has his hand on the ball and it ends as a completed pass. Like at some point, some of this is luck, right? Some of it is just like just by hair, a second here, second there, whatever. But to go that long without a sack after starting the season at 7.5 is absolutely insane.
He had 14 pressures by my count after the Parsons torn ACL. I think 3 of those are quarterback hits, no sacks. Right. So I gave in 2024 Pro Bowl season, voted on predominantly by coaches and players. I gave Rashawn Gary a B-, right in that Pro Bowl range. Mm-hmm. He had very similar production in 2025 as he had in 2024. Maybe a tick up, but barely. I mean, it's basically the same season. But I gave him a C+ for 2 reasons. 1, 10 straight games without a sack. Like, you're paid for sacks. That matters. Yeah. But 2, I don't think going into the season that the expectation playing into December with Micah Parsons was for Rashawn Gary to have the same season. The expectation was for him to have a demonstrably better season, which he was on pace to do through the first 8 games, and then it stopped happening. So it is, I think, disappointing that he had the same season with the benefit of rushing with Micah Parsons. That to me is where I arrive at the C+ grade. As far as, Kingsley Enagbare going into free agency, I gave him a C+. I thought as far as value, as far as players, who they were as a player goes, Kingsley Enagbare, same player as Rashawn Gary, much, much, much cheaper. So that's where the Packers have to make the determination of, okay, how badly do you want it or need to trim cap this offseason? If it's not that pressing, I wouldn't be surprised if Rashawn Gary's back. If it is, just saving $11 million there, and you can re-sign Kingsley Enagbare for probably that $11 million. Mm-hmm. You're no worse for wear there. So I think that's where the determination comes.
What do you make of the defensive tackle group? Because, man, Devontae Wyatt obviously having a really good season, productive season, right, prior to going down there in Detroit. I like the idea of a lot of these guys, but as a whole, man, you just look around the league and the best defenses are able to collapse the pocket from the interior. And it's just not something the Packers do or did with any regularity in 2025.
Here's what I think they're missing at defensive tackle. It's very clear that Brian Gutekunst knew what they had in Devontae Wyatt, and that had to be a big reason they were so comfortable with giving Kenny Clark to the Dallas Cowboys as part of the Micah Parsons trade, because they have that frontliner. They knew coming into the season Devontae Wyatt can replace Kenny Clark as that frontline defensive tackle. And you're absolutely right, because when he is healthy, which has not been enough, but when he is,
not nearly enough, but
he is a legitimate Pro Bowl defensive tackle. He plays at that level. Kenny Clark wasn't the only defensive tackle they lost last year. Back in free agency, I thought that it was going to be a significant departure to lose TJ Slayton, because he was a beast in the run game. Well, I think Brian Gutekunst knew that Colby Wooden was ready to take that run stopper role over from TJ Slayton, and he did. He was phenomenal against the run. Not the same size as TJ Slayton, but good play strength, more range. He is what you want. They call him the general. He is what you want as a nose defending the run. He's just TJ Slayton not going to give you a whole bunch of pressure.
When it comes to rushing the passer, right?
Not a pass run. So you've got the frontliner, you've got the run stopper. What they had, though, when they had Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt, was 2 defensive tackles that were all down defensive tackles. They had 2 of them. Now they have 1, because Carl Brooks is a situational pass rusher. Colby Wooden is a run stopper. They don't have that second all-down defensive tackle, and I think that that's a hole in that depth chart. They need to find one this offseason. That's one of their top priorities, to find one. If you do, I think your defensive tackle position is complete at that point, because you've got the front liner, you got the secondary all-down guy, and you've got the Colby Wooden that's going to stop the run. But without that, you're incomplete there. And I think they knew that going in was, okay, this is not going to be a complete unit without 2 of those guys that are all-down guys.
Right.
But you still have the front liner, and you match him with Micah Parsons. You've got really two studs there. That's going to get you through. But when you lose both of them, I mean, you're helpless at that point.
The trickle down is noticeable, definitely. Let's bump it back to the linebacker position. Obviously, the big question heading into the offseason is Quay Walker, right? And it's interesting what a almost Rorschach test he has become, right? For fans, media, what have you. I think he had a good year. I wouldn't call it a great year. I think he had a good year. But I won't be, and I do think it's a bit of a tricky proposition. And I know Brian has talked many times about how he views Quay as a core part of their defense, wants him there long term, whatever they're going to be doing defensively. But man, I'm telling you, if you're Quay Walker, you've gotten to this point. You're on the precipice of free agency. I don't see how he doesn't test the market, because I suspect he's going to get paid. Like, I don't doubt that for a second, and I don't think it's going to be by the Green Bay Packers.
Well, I told you, for me, Josh Jacobs is probably the toughest player on offense to evaluate. Quay Walker is the toughest player on defense to evaluate, because the things that he does well, he does extremely well.
Yep.
Like the things he does well, he does all pro good well. The things that he does not can border on unplayable. And there's not a lot of variance between the two. So what we're talking about specifically, he was drafted 22nd overall in 2022 because he had this rare blend at the position of size, speed, and he didn't always play up to those measurables early in his career, but my goodness, did he in the second year of Jeff Hafley's system. Mm-hmm. Incredible range against the run, flies to the line of scrimmage, just a force in the run game. And then you add the pass rush that he brings on top of it from that position. He is a quality. He's a plus pass rusher.
Agreed.
Those are the makings of one of the best linebackers in the league. And then you get to the coverage.
Yeah, then you do.
And the things, like if there's a play in front of him, that size and speed takes over, and he can just attack it.
See ball, get ball. Yes,
yeah,
100%.
He had 15 run stuffs. I think like 9 or 10 tackles for loss. Like he just was dominant near the line of scrimmage. But he has no spatial awareness behind him. He has slow reactions, middle of the field, and coverage. Missed assignments. The Saquon Barkley check down. He was supposed to, he watches Saquon Barkley leak into the left flat and lets him go unblocked on 3rd and 7. He was supposed to go cover Saquon Barkley. It turns into the play that Jeff Hafley said
play on the left sideline. Right.
He was most disappointed in. Made it clear that no, there weren't two quarterback spies in that play. That was Edgerrin Cooper's job. Quay Walker was supposed to go there, and he didn't. The week after, New York, he takes a stop route in the left side, standing a yard to the right of Edgerrin Cooper, and lets a dig go behind him for 20 yards. Doesn't cover the middle of the field. And to me, your last impression of Quay Walker is that Bears game where, by the 3rd time playing this Packers defense this season, finally Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams found the hole.
Yeah, they did.
And the hole was intermediate middle coverage. And once they found it, once the faucet was turned on, it did not turn off. They relentlessly bullied Quay Walker in coverage in that Bears game. That's your final impression. So you're right, Aaron. Like the things that he did well this season, he did off the charts.
It's going to get him paid. It's going to get him paid.
It is, but you can't protect a Mike from coverage. Like if you play the Mike position, you
not in 2026 in the NFL. Hell no.
And he can't cover. So
yeah,
that's the issue to me. I don't know where you come with the evaluation on that.
It's tough. It's going to be interesting to see how they transition there if Quay indeed walks, which I think he will. Because with Edgerrin Cooper, I mean, man, all the talent in the world. And I don't think he had a bad year. But certainly, given what we saw his rookie season, another year in the same system, so there's no change there, I certainly expected more splash plays, more difference-making plays. And it's, again, I think he did a lot of good stuff. But certainly not the jump that I think myself and a lot of folks were expecting, given how promising his rookie campaign was.
Yeah, he did a lot of good stuff. 22 run stuffs, like 7 or 8 tackles for loss, speed all over the field, not a liability in coverage. Did not pass rush as much as Quay Walker. I think a big reason for that is that you did not want Quay Walker going back.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that's the issue there is if he's going forward, he's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep him doing that, which means less pass rushes for Edgerrin Cooper. It wasn't because of Edgerrin Cooper that there were fewer pass rushes. So I think an increase there, you're going to see more. I think you're right that when you have all that speed at that position, you're involved in so many plays. You're waiting for those flash plays to happen. Same feeling as a rookie coming into the 2025. You're like, okay, he's close. Like those are going to happen, and they didn't. So it's going to be the same thing going into 2026. He's got speed all over. He's involved in so many plays. You're going to be expecting more of the splash plays, which really separates the elite players at that position in this league. Can you take the football away? Can you end drives as a playmaker? We'll see if it happens, right? I mean, that's going to be the part of his jump that's especially important. But as far as, he profiles as a really good Mike. Like he can cover. He's always around the line of scrimmage against the run. He profiles good at that position.
Very excited to see what Cooper can gin up for the kid. Looking at kind of the depth there, obviously they play mostly with two linebackers, but they obviously will get McDuffie and company on the field at points. What did you make of McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and the like? Because it's not like we got to see a ton of them. I thought probably the worst thing to happen for Hopper was that Week 18 game, because I thought he had an excellent summer, but man, that was a rough look against the Vikings. And then you throw in McDuffie, who I thought played solid ball and probably better ball than I was expecting when he was called upon.
Have you seen the play from the Week 18 game with Hopper where it's a midline run? He's got a gap and he just backs up for 10 yards.
Yes.
He just backs up. He just backs up.
Well, he's covering deep, man. He's got to get that
against the run. Yeah.
You never know. It might be a flea flicker. Just making sure.
Against a midline carry.
It's a tough look. It's a tough look.
That can't happen at that position. You've got to be able to attack. He did in the playoff game. He didn't switch a zone coverage with Quay Walker. One of the few that Quay Walker didn't get wrong there. He let a little check down for 17 yards to DeAndre Swift because he didn't switch in zone. Now is that a guy that he's got the tools, he's got the makeup, and just didn't play a lot?
Maybe he just needs to play, right?
Needs to play more.
I kind of think so.
Yeah, because he's talented. The talent is there. It's just with such a small sample size, I don't know what to expect when those snaps increase. It can go either way. It's going to be really interesting to see. As far as Isaiah McDuffie goes, they really did a good job protecting him in coverage. He did not have a lot of coverage responsibility, which meant that he could do what he does very, very well, which is play the run. And he's a tremendous run-stopping linebacker. Might be their best tackler at that position. When he hits you, you feel it. He's really good in that role. It's a shame because he didn't give up anything in pass coverage, but he also wasn't asked to cover a whole lot. If he was a quality coverage linebacker, he'd be such the perfect Mike for this defense where you can just keep Edgerrin Cooper operating in space. Mm-hmm. I just don't think you want to expose Isaiah McDuffie to a lot of coverage reps, right? And which is what they didn't do in 2025. And because of that, he had a good season.
I very much agree, given what he was asked to do. Very much agreed there. Let's go to the outside. Let's go to the perimeter. We'll take our lumps here, and we'll talk about the cornerback group because, boy, howdy, Ryan Wood. Let me tell you something. There are times where the fan base is howling and like braying and, pointing out that the emperor has no clothes. And oftentimes I am guilty. I'm like, they know what they're doing. These are professionals. Like this past summer kind of reminds me back in the day when everyone was saying that Justin Harrell was a terrible pick by Ted Thompson. And I'm sitting there going, well, Ted's forgotten more football than we've ever known, like blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? The fans were right about Justin Harrell, and the fans were right that the cornerback group was going to be a problem because holy cow, was it a problem, especially after Micah Parsons went down and the pass rush dried up.
We'll start with what they did well, what Brian Gutekunst did well at that position. He was right about Jair Alexander.
Yes, he was.
And
the right call.
That's about it. I'm running here. I asked Ryan Gutekunst if they needed wholesale change there, and he said no, he does not believe so. And I tend to agree with him because I do think that Keyshawn Nixon, while not a number one corner,
nope,
because number one corners take the ball away in this league. Number one corners, go look at
or help you get off the field on third down, like
right.
at the very least.
Well, go look at the deep ball that Jordan Love threw to Christian Watson in Denver. Okay, number one corners do what Pat Surtain did there. That's the elites in this league. But he is I think 17 PBUs, one of the biggest plays of the season, picking off Caleb Williams in the end zone, a phenomenal play where he's tracking from the backside perimeter. Like that's sublime corner play.
Yep.
He's going to give up his plays. He's going to make some plays. He is, to me, a starting caliber corner on a title caliber defense. The problem is they only have one of those, and you need two, right? And
at least, yeah.
In Carrington Valentine, they have a corner who tackles like a cover corner. He just doesn't cover like one. And that's a problem.
It's an issue.
There was nothing more helpless on this defense than watching Carrington Valentine try to tackle. The Saquon Barkley screen whiffed on the spin move.
Mm.
Derrick Henry
made him look like a kid at a picnic.
If you can live with corners that don't tackle well if they cover, but then the Caleb Williams touchdown fourth quarter when he just lets DJ Moore go behind.
Classic stop and go.
Just no contest on the biggest touchdown of the season. He gave up, I believe, 6 touchdowns. He gave up about 10, 20 plus catches. It's not playable. So the idea with Brian Gutekunst is that they're going to bring in corners. They're going to create depth, and they're going to hope that from that competition, they find another starting caliber corner to match with Keyshawn Nixon, who I do think is a starting caliber corner, just not that number one.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment overall. And it is frustrating with the Valentine thing because it was so clear that, especially by the end of the year, they wanted to bench him. But every time they tried, guys got hurt and they had to throw Valentine back out there. So it's mostly frustrating because we all knew going into the season that was the weak point, right? And that certainly played out. And it doesn't help that Hobbs, who you mentioned making the right call on Jair Alexander. Yeah. Well, you bring in Hobbs, you moved on from Jair because he can't stay on the field, and you brought in a guy who his history would suggest can't stay on the field, and lo and behold, the first day they put pads on was off the field because of injury and everything that transpired afterwards. The
disappointing thing there with Nate Hobbs from last season, I think, is that Week 16 in Chicago, they found something there. Like, you don't have Micah Parsons now. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to generate pressure. And he had a couple pressures in that game to force incompletions from Caleb Williams. And it's like, oh, I see the role. That can be very useful. And the very next week on a PBU in the end zone, he
gets hurt.
Again. Which is why the biggest disappointment is that you should have seen this coming. This was not Aaron Banks, who has never had really injury issues in his career. And then, boy, injury-riddled first season with you. That happens in this league. Like, that's tough. Mm-hmm. That happens for everyone. It's tough to avoid. With Nate Hobbs, he's never stayed healthy. Like, that's always been part of his journey in this league. His development is he just can't stay on the field. And lo and behold, he didn't stay on the field this year.
But now, see, I started talking about the secondary. I start with the corners because we get the bad news out of the way, right? Now you can talk about the safety group, which, Ryan, I got to say, it's been a long time since I've felt as good about the safety play and the safety group as a whole in Green Bay. It has been a long time. I mean, you can start with X. You can go down to Oladapo. I think everyone in this group is exciting and has promise. And I tell you, you got Gannon coming in here who traditionally likes to use a bunch of different safeties. Hell, he'll run 3 safeties as parts of his base offense or defense. Sorry. I think this marriage, this new defensive system coming in should play to the Packers' strength in their secondary with this group, because I thought Bullard had a phenomenal year. The X is still X. He's just got to hold on to some interceptions. But I thought he had a strong year. I thought Evan Williams took a big step forward. I mean, this is where the promise is on defense.
Yeah, you know, as I was learning about Jonathan Gannon, and one of the first things I see is he really likes to put a lot of safeties on the field at once, which he did in Arizona. I'm like, oh, that's good for this defense.
Right.
Because they got a lot of safeties that need to play, and they're game changers. Evan Williams, I think, might be in terms of the perception publicly of who he is as a player, and then you turn on the film and who he actually is as a player, I think he has the biggest gap in terms of the plus side on this roster.
Yep.
So Xavier McKinney, to me, I have him as an A-. It's an A season. I had an A season for him in 2024 because he took the football away, dropped too many interceptions.
Way too many. Yep.
Like 4 interceptions.
I mean, game changers. I mean, the one he caught is a fourth down, that he should have let drop. And there's two in particular that he just absolutely has to hang on to, and not just game changing, could have been season changing. But
yeah, well, the interception in Denver, the dropped interception in Denver on the sideline, would have ended the drive that Micah Parsons tore his ACL on.
Yep.
So you can't with those dropped picks. He's not an A season, but I have him A- because outside of that,
he was
for all this season, he still didn't give up anything.
Yep.
He is still an eraser on the back end. You're not getting big plays on him. But I have Evan Williams also as an A-, which, again, that's like borderline all-pro level. Let's go back. It's famous now. Let's go back to the Jeff Hafley quote from his introductory press conference about the perfect field safety and how he, before they signed Xavier McKinney, entirely described Xavier McKinney.
Right.
Let's imagine if they had Xavier McKinney at that point and they were looking to find the perfect complement at safety to match with Xavier McKinney, and that was the question, Jeff Hafley would have entirely described Evan Williams. Evan Williams, having him on the field, it's like when you're in nickel, you still have that third linebacker against the run. That is a tremendous benefit in this league when you can stop. He was a big part of why they were so good against the run.
He was
early in the season.
From depth, too. I mean, the way he would trigger is so impressive. Impressive.
I think he had 13 run stuffs, which a run stuff is a run play. You make a stop less than 3 yards, one or two, no gain, 1 yard, 2 yard. That's how I counted up. He had 13 run stuffs crashing from back, from deep. That's like one a week.
That's pretty damn good.
That is what you want with Xavier McKinney, who erases the deep middle. That's the perfect complement between those two. I have them both as A-. They're both elite players. You want to see Xavier McKinney catch more of those picks next season. Interceptions come, they go. I imagine that he's not going to have as many drops in 2026. He's still an elite player. Yeah. As far as Devon Bowler goes, he's born to play the slot nickel position. His speed, he reminds me a lot of Edgerrin Cooper in terms of he has speed all over. He's involved in so many plays. You want to see him generate more takeaways and more drive stopping plays with that speed, but he's involved in so much coming off of the slot. He's run support. He was fine in coverage there, much better than he is on the back end at safety, which you don't need because you have Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams. Those three together, that's real good.
Yeah, it's such tremendous depth at the safety spot. Very, very pleased with what they're doing there. Not so pleased with the kicking situation. It's going to be fascinating. I know Gutekunst's touting he made 32 straight kicks before he missed the 2 in Chicago. But, man, he was brutal from, 45 and above, which in today's NFL is supposed everywhere else it seems is a total gimme. What do you think they do there? Because it sounded from Brian's presser that they're going to bring McManus back, but bring in competition, which is always their kind of mantra, right? But, man, do we think it's real competition? Do we really think this is going to be an open, or do they stick with the guy that they gave the 3-year contract extension to last summer?
I have a hard time seeing anyone other than Brandon McManus as their kicker in 2026. And I can understand why. I think that's a GM that pretty scarred, not just from the Anders Carlson, Brandon Nardson experiences, but also like this is a GM that prematurely cut J.K. Scott and then watched J.K. Scott become a really good punter in L.A. I think that he's probably learned from those experiences to a point of where Ted Thompson was with Mason Crosby, who had some abysmal years, like some really bad years, but they never moved on and they always stuck with him. And he rewarded that patience. I'm not saying the same's going to happen with Brandon McManus. This was a bad year. And it started with, you're injured, man. Your kicking leg's injured. It happens. Sit out. You got
why he was never put on IR, like when it first happened. And they're playing the dance between him and the bench. I'll never understand that. Ever.
It was a big mistake. It was one of the biggest mistakes that this team made all year. Yeah. And there's company there, so that's not like downplaying anything else. But it was a bad year. That's going to happen at kicker. I can understand not wanting to go to the dark ages known as rookie kickers and their struggles. I can understand not having those scars and not wanting to do that. So I don't think it's an abominable idea that they're going to be patient with Brandon McManus, who has played a long time in this league, a veteran, not a rookie. There's just you feel like you know more what you're getting there. No matter how bad his struggles were. Brian Gutekunst. What did you make of the Rich Bisaccia comments?
I mean, look, he's not wrong. To the letter of the law, what he said, he's not wrong. They have focused on teams and bringing team-specific guys into the building, right? That has certainly occurred. I think their coverage units are better. Like, he's not wrong there. I think there has been improvement on teams. The problem and the perception, which becomes reality, is that you can point to miscues on special teams in almost every single loss. So if these issues are continuing to contribute directly to losing football games, don't you have to try something else? Like, again, I don't think you need to throw the fans a pound of flesh. And I talk to anybody in that building, and I'm sure you have too. What is it that you hear about Bisaccia? Oh, he's so good for Matt. He's so good with the players. He's such a big part of what we're doing, the glue, blah, 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 which is fine. I'd love to see any evidence of it on the football field or contributing to wins rather than contributing to losses. That's what is mysterious to me.
What I found interesting about that piece of it is, because you're right, they absolutely feel that way, is the losses they had last season were culture issues. When you can't close games in this league, because this is a league built on parity.
Yep.
All games are close. It's rare to see
all going to be one-score games.
That's what this – you have to finish games. Yep. Like that. That is this league. And when you can't or you don't, there's some things that you need to dig into with the culture there to figure out why is it we're not. And so to tout his influence and presence with the culture – when the culture needs to be improved,
some kind of shift. Right?
That I didn't understand. Now, I will say this. I came into the offseason right after Chicago and all those issues. I came in largely apathetic about what they do with Rich Bisaccia because I've been on this beat when they had Sean Slocum. I've been on this beat when they had Ron Zook. I've been on this beat when they had Maurice Drayton. Let's not forget the game.
Zooker.
The last game they played before hiring Rich Bisaccia was the 21 NFC divisional round playoff game. To me, at a certain point, it stops becoming about whoever the coordinator is, and it's something much bigger than that, to where it doesn't matter who you hire next. If you don't change other things, like, it's not going to matter. That's not going to be the right guy either. I'm not saying Rich Bisaccia is the right guy. I don't think he's the biggest problem either. I'm largely apathetic there. The comment that stood out to me is when Brian Gutekunst says, hey, last 4 or 5 years, we focus more on special teams than we ever had before, than we ever did under Ted Thompson. And yet, this is the same GM who never had a punter kickoff return specialist all season.
This is the one. This is the one.
It's kind of like saying, hey, I painted 3 walls of this room. But
don't worry about that exposed wall.
There's a drywall 4th wall that, I painted 3 of them. Like, what do you want? But maybe paint the 4th wall.
you know what makes it even exponentially worse and tougher to deal with as a fan is watching John Schneider swing the trade for Shaheed in the middle of the season, who becomes an electric returner, literally contributes to victories, while the Packers throw Romeo Dobbs back there and say, just don't screw it up. Just catch the ball.
Which is not Rich Bisaccia's fault.
No, exactly. But this is my point. Like, I don't blame Bisaccia for them having a terrible return unit when they don't have a returner. You sign McCole Hardman, but for whatever reason, because I guess some bad moments in a preseason game, like, nope, he's not good enough. He's not going to be on this team while he's returning big kicks for Buffalo later in the season. And you've got Romeo Dobbs back there. And I love Romeo, but he's not a returner. Not even close. So just completely, pardon the phrasing, punting on the return aspect of special teams. That's not on Rich Bisaccia. You know, that's where I can't get behind, like, we got to fire Rich and everything will work. Like, no, like, to your point, there's a lot of context there and there's a lot of moving parts that need to be better.
You know, the dominoes on this thing I find very interesting because I'm right there with you. I can't blame Rich Bisaccia for putting Romeo Dobbs at punt return. They didn't have a punt return.
They didn't have anybody.
Organizational. That's higher up.
Yep.
But the dominoes of, you did have a 2-time All-Pro kickoff return specialist who you allowed to dictate terms because he believed that he was a number one corner, and number one corners don't return kickoffs even if they are all pros at it. And he gets that treatment, dictates the terms, is not a number one corner, and you never like come back to, hey, man, you need we don't have any returners. Like, you need to return. You never come back to that. That is a culture thing to me. Like, you can't have players dictate what they are. That's the GM's job. The GM evaluates, which, by the way, Brian Gutekunst did when he re-signed Keyshawn Nixon 3 years, $18 million. That's a special teams contract. That's not a number one corner contract. He made the evaluation. That's the GM's job. That's culture. But Rich Bisaccia, darn it, is invaluable to the culture.
That's what I hear.
I just, my head starts spinning there, you know, and I'm not making light of it. It's just.
No, I don't. I'm making light of it.
Yeah, that has to, like.
All I can do is laugh, Ryan.
That has to change, you know, like starting corners, which is what Keyshawn Nixon is, can still return kickoffs.
Hello, the last time the Packers were in the Super Bowl, they opened the door to the playoffs because a number one wide receiver with the Philadelphia Eagles was back there on punt return and took one to the house.
Yep.
You know, this idea that he's untouchable because he plays corner is insane to me.
And if you have more depth at corner, maybe you could.
There is that aspect.
You do need that, but that has to. Keyshawn Nixon should be the kickoff returner in 2026. He's not a number one corner. Should not be that. He should be a starting corner. He needs to be the kickoff returner. And then you need to find a punt returner. You got to draft one.
They got the punt return thing. Look, I can almost live with Savion Williams being back there again. Like, I can on kick returns, right? Yeah. Maybe it is Keyshawn. Either one of those, I totally fine. They have got to find a punt returner. They haven't had a punt returner since Micah Hyde left the building. I mean, that's how long it's been. They desperately need to find one. Well, Ryan, always a great time chatting, catching up, talking Packers. Make sure you're checking out Ryan's work there at packersnews.com. Like I said at the start, links are in the description of this video. Ryan, thanks so much, man. Have a great offseason.
Hey, take care, Aaron.